Record. All right. So, what do you guys think of the name? Right now. I'm calling it. No, wait. Desktop Dojo Live. For now,
I like it.
whatever.
Works, it works.
My coach keeps changing his stuff all around, so I don't need to be married to anything. I hem and haw over things, but I always want to try to find something that's a little bit, like I said, Chris and I were talking about this, the Q&A thing, like, because what I'd like to try to make it more as an interactive and uh, collaborative meetings, I think might be, and then I'm going to do a separate Q&A, more technical, more like martial art based Q&A thing as part of the daily discipline membership, which we'll talk about. But one thing I'm going to send an email out about this anyways, but I want to just share a cool story that's a little bit more uh, on the self-defense aspect of things, but with kids. One of my sixth grader students, I'll probably just keep it anonymous. I'll tell you guys, but um, for the purpose of this recording anyways, but he's been getting harassed like continually by this one kid in particular. And we've been doing a lot in the kids class, a lot of like non-violent self-defense, like schoolyard self-defense, I call it. So a lot of ducking under, a lot of control stuff, basically grappling, jujitsu, protecting yourself from punches. Anyways, apparently, and his dad told me about it, but he's psyched to tell me himself. So some kid bumped into him, or he bumped into this kid that's been bugging him and bullying him essentially, and just harassing him and whatever. And the kid got hot and he's like, hey, he started pushing him, and he fanned the arms and ducked under and took his back, and then took him down. Like, it was outside, so it was wasn't on concrete, but it was everything we taught. It was like what we teach. And I was like, oh, and not only that, the kid got up and he was all like, ugh, and he came at him again and he did the same thing to him and got to his back again and took him down. And then the bully kid, his buddy came at him and he took that kid's back. And then he was a big kid, but he wasn't able to take him down, I guess. So he got to his back and he was just kind of like, look, I don't want to get beat up. I don't want to can you stop trying to punch me or whatever? And it's like out of a movie. The kids were, they try to act tough about it and walk away. Um, but and then the cool thing was the monitor or whatever who saw it, or the teacher, was like, what, he was describing what happened. And he was like, yeah, and I got to, my student was explaining to him all the techniques and like how to get a cable grip. You don't want to use your thumbs, all the stuff we were teaching them and everything. And so I was like, win. I love that. Like, everything worked out perfectly. He didn't even get in trouble though, but he didn't hurt anybody, but the whole thing worked out. So I know that's not really what we're talking about today, but I thought I'd throw that out there and share that with everybody. I'm going to lock this front door real quick just so we don't get a visitor. And all right. So my thought today was just kind of like, this is such a broad subject. And so I feel like this could branch out into very specific areas. But, so I just kind of threw this one out there in terms of, because I get quite a few people, as students, but then even some of my private students, who, just admitted that they're like, yeah, they love obviously the physicality. They love learning, martial arts, self-defense, kickboxing, those sort of things. But what's really what the huge value for them is just this the mental health benefits that we get from training. And, I've got um, so many ideas and theories and examples on this. And that's why I think it could almost, I think hopefully through the conversation, things could become more directed even for a future conversation. Right. Because, I think the one thing that I've encountered the 20 some odd years I've been doing this as a profession, and talking to people is that everyone's hill is unique. I call it a hill, but everyone's, let's say mental health hill is unique to that person. And whatever it is that through training, like I know for myself, I could go on through the stories of just how it's uh, quelled my ego, how it's modified my ego and helped me with so many aspects of more behavioral health than almost mental health. But I mean, they're related, in terms of, being less judgmental, like for one, or the whole thing of getting over yourself. Like, I mean, I'm sure everyone has that need in some way or another, but that's the one thing that I know students, that individualized thing has always been a hard thing to package, if you will, to somebody, right? Like, hey, obviously self-defense and fitness, right? It's like you're going to learn some great martial skills, if you will, and you get in shape, but then through the training is almost more where you can say stress relief for sure, but it's really interesting that I found for myself as well as my students that they find their own, like they weren't necessarily even thinking that when they came in. They were just like, it just happens. Like they start training obviously relieving stress is a huge aspect that we all need in our environment. Is we have stressful information coming at us on the daily, all the time. So coming in here and just physically exerting yourself and physically challenging yourself, and there's a chemical response to that as well that helps with stress relief. Cortisol gets lowered, that sort of thing. But so that was just sort of, as a very general concept, but one that I feel like I could, once we get going, or once I get going, could talk forever about, just in terms of what I've seen with my own students, and then what people, what I've had for myself. And so anyways, I thought I'd just kind of open that up if anyone's got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I found that doing the martial arts has helped improve mental health, especially it helps recenter the body and connect the mind to itself. It's really easy to, for the longest time, I was secluded. I was alone. All I do is work, and I come home, and you just get wrapped up in your own head, and you start going down different paths. But like being able to be physically active in anything, not just in martial arts, but just period, it uh it really helps you connect the mind and body. Um, and then that way you're able to at least navigate the world with a little more rationale and a little more like groundedness, I guess it would be.
Yeah. Well, that sort of leads into, and it kind of shares with our last conversation, as we were talking a little bit about a more, the the ability when talk about the more reality-based self-defense training, and taking ourselves into that environment, and the way that the training and learning these things changes how you interact with your environment, with people around you, so that that having that confidence, for instance, and being able to like be in a situation where you can calmly handle it a lot more than maybe you wouldn't if you weren't feeling more empowered, right? With just physical skills. Um, but yeah, the mind body connection thing, of course. Carrie, did you have anything you wanted to throw in there?
For me, it's really making that separation from, outside to inside that I find mentally like really important. And then over the years, it, I appreciate it more and more because there's a really nice, once you walk into the dojo to have, this is my focus. These are my people right now, it's it's very contained, and it allows me to draw in my focus, which something I'm always working on and checking in, to be able to not have a lot of distractions. So it's important for me, my education, and also the ability to, separate. You leave it at the door, everything. And that in itself is a practice, to sincerely do that and just be with the people, like same-minded people doing our thing.
Yeah.
That's something mentally that's important to me.
Mhm.
Notice group activities I'm drawn towards a lot more than single single things. So that's what a bit of what I'm thinking about.
Mm.
Yeah, having a bit of community to be able to connect to has been, I think, is what you're implying or what you're saying. And I found that very helpful because, again, I was very secluded for the longest time, and it 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 was difficult to kind of be in a community for a bit in the beginning of joining your martial arts school, uh, only because I wasn't used to it, and it took me a minute.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it was weird. It was like experiencing the world from the back of a room looking out a window, if that makes any sense. It's like you're so far back that your focus on anything that's in reality is like teeny tiny. And the closer you get to that window, the more the world starts to expand. And
Mm.
then after I think about 9 months in your class, I didn't feel like I was in a room anymore. It was just very, very interesting, like how I was actually now in my body, but like experiencing everything instead of feeling like a robot with a little guy controlling in the back of my head.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And it's funny because I just kind of taken some notes here, and that community thing came out right away, what you were talking about, and having that, um uh it's just such a unique thing, and again, I've had endless conversations with guys, with students, with folks, and um it's just like, and what Carrie was saying too, that's huge, that separation, that stepping in, like, again, when we come in here, we're all, I don't know if I like the word equal, use the word equal there, but we're all on our own path, and we're respecting each other's path of whatever that is, personal improvement of some kind. And for somebody, it might just mean, just showing up. Like, for some people, just showing up is like the big, the task. For some people, it's getting better at the thing, or learning the thing, or it's really interesting to watch the different um psychologies at play. I feel like this being in this world for so long, it is almost like being like a therapist to a degree. Because you see people's, like, I use the word psychology, pretty, it gets pretty exposed in martial arts, because there's all these factors, like you're saying, Carrie, when you come out of the what we might call the outside world, right? And you're suddenly like, there's just, obviously, there's little processes. I mean, we're not a traditional martial arts school, but I ask people to bow when they come on the mat. You bow to your partner. There's these little practices, and then the confrontation that people have with their own insecurities is immediate, at least to me. Like, you see the different hills to climb, right? Because for some people, it's not, it's more of getting over a different type of ego, if you will. Like, the person, I've had students, and you guys have trained with them, have seen them, they have other training background, and or say military. And I've had military students that for them, being able to enter a civilian martial art experience was therapeutic, was relieving for them. They were like, oh wow. Because in their mind, like I had this one guy who was a Marine, and his training was based on combat. Like, so it wasn't fun. It wasn't like, let's get together and swing some sticks and even sparring, right? Like we're still elevating each other. We're still, but like they were like, oh, you might have to go kill somebody. And so this is what, the mindset was already combative. It's not like we do special set classes to get into a combative mindset. That's all their mindset was. And so for him to come in and train, and our style is combative. I mean, Muay Thai and JKD and Kali and it's like was therapeutic. Like he was like, wow, this is really something. This is really helpful because I can actually. And I've had a few guys say that, like to be able to change their perspective and to train with somebody who's 30 years older or smaller, or you know what I mean? Like that was like a big, I don't know the exact word for it, but it was a big mental step for them, and helped them quite a bit. Like it gave them this, and again, came back to community. Like they felt like, oh, this is great. I've got this home, I've got these group of people that, maybe I'm not hanging out with them every weekend and stuff like that, but here we get together and improve each other. And so, that's been a thing that like is really interesting again for me, not running if we were just running, let's say a fighter school or something, and not to denigrate fighters or say they're all the same, but it is a different mindset if you go to a school where everyone's training to go compete in an MMA match, right? Or people want to train with those guys because they have to, that's just what suits them best, right? You get that sort of soup of folks, but when you've got like, we've got everything from people that are just needing something physical and this calls to them, and to, we've got some good athlete, people of all kinds. And so finding that like community, finding that support, finding that area, that space where people are like, are able to help each other regardless of their level and regardless of what they're here for, is, well, let's just put it this way. It's why I do this. I mean, that's obviously the kind of school I'm trying to run. And it's what I find, the most rewarding in a way. Obviously we want to find special, you want to find people you can train with at a certain click, and it's fun to find the people you jive with, but that aspect of like what Chris was saying is, I think huge. And I think also too, and one of the things that I would like to, one of my sort of visions of a virtual, like this Desktop Dojo, experience that we're doing, and these virtual experiences is to, if help, connect other people if possible. Some people might not have the school to train at, right? Or that's always been like kind of an ideal for me, is if I could help people with their own little small training groups or even just a partner. But expanding that sense of community, because one of the things that was kind of profound for me was realizing not only the immediate community we have, but the global community. Like when you start training Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu or Kali, and you start realizing like, wow, wait a minute, this is, like when I realized that was profound, meeting Dan Inosanto and training with Dan Inosanto, for instance, right? And then realizing like, oh man, there's people in France and Germany and, all Czechoslovakia, it's like, this is a global community, right? Of whatever your interest in. And I think that is also an important and connecting aspect for people, I would think. But yeah. And the other thing, if you don't mind me blabbering away here, aside from the community thing and what Carrie was saying too, you know, the an area that I've become really fascinated with over the last few years is I'll just say meditation in general, but then a specific kind of approach to understanding the science of what that means, like, disconnecting from your environment as much as possible and connecting to or basically unconnecting, if you will, but connecting to the ether, to the field, people call it, but which is the goal. Is a really hard process, a very difficult process to shut down and to quiet the beta mind, right? The brain that's just, and so in a way, like what Carrie was talking about too, is that, that's why I think it's important to bow onto the mat. It's like, I'm now not that person. I'm not the guy that works at Trader Joe's or whatever, right? Like you're saying, Carrie, it's like, I'm now this, piece of clay, that's being molded. I'm a student. I'm a, a partner, all these things, but you disconnect from that to this, and that's somewhat of a what you might call hijacking the subconscious a little bit, but that disconnecting from your everyday environment is huge, right? Is huge. And I would bet other activities do that for people. Maybe they go with their CrossFit or something, or go to yoga class or whatever it is. They have that experience, but yeah, I think I know for a fact for myself, and again, a lot of I see them come in. Like I have, a couple students, like one of my jujitsu guys that's been with me forever. Like, I know what kind of day he had, but get a little bit on the mat, and then all of a sudden you're like a whole new person. So I think it's part of not just the learning part, but unplugging. Unplugging is, I think, and ironically, as we're doing on this virtual platform here, plugging in. But anyways, I don't know. Any other thoughts there, or ideas aside from, like, again, I think we Chris and I touched on this last time quite a bit, was the confidence building and how that shapes the mind, and that, that in and of itself is like a huge thing for people to maintain that mental health. And I mean, again, I feel like mental health is a bit of a, maybe too general of a word, too vast of a word,
Yeah.
So, stress reduction might be better, or anxiety. I know for a lot of people.
Yeah, Bob, when you mentioned, confidence building, new people, one thing that I've observed and really watch for is the new person that walks in. It's like kind of sensing, how confident they are, and watch how do they move on to, are people reaching out to them? How do they feel about that if they're coming onto the mat? How are they feeling with other people they don't know, and how are the existing people creating a space where they can feel more confident and comfortable? I think one thing that the school really has been nurtured in is bringing people in and up and letting them know this is okay and weird. And I often hear, well, I know how you feel, everybody's doing this, and letting people know that, yeah, if you feel clunky, that's a good thing, because you're feeling it out at some level. And so building the confidence sometimes, how I feel for myself and witness, sometimes it's just the space that it's okay to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, there's that saying, don't watch, you know, the other people, just be with you.
Mhm.
And I think that's a gift and something to practice. And I also think that you know, filling everybody's I mean the school and the class and the people in it have something that is being given to them. And you know, some people take it in, some don't. Now I'm drifting off to another thing. So there's two, I kind of see it, you know, individual and what the whole class is doing.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel comfortable that when you go to the next person, they're gonna
Yeah.
engage with you? So that's what I feel here, and I think they're so comfortable.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
My thoughts and
Yeah. No, that's important.
bringing people's confidence up if that's not where they're coming from, or if they're you know, maybe where is their confidence coming from if they come in, you know, are they open to being that new person? And even if they come in with years of experience, someone walking in and allowing themselves to be new.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's a confidence builder too, is just having it safe, having the school be safe for them at whatever level they come in. And that builds confidence, I think. Just walking in the door, you know, people feel that it's not an ego-driven school.
Yeah.
You know, you've often talked about, but sets the tone. And Bob, what I've also seen it is weeding out, you know, an appropriate word. It's just people find their own, I think, is this a good fit for me? You know, and emotionally and mentally, not only physically. And I think if I was going to guess, I think it's, you know, the emotional, mental confidence that people are often choosing whether they stay or not. Because the physical is going to be there. You know, the thing that exhibits outwardly, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, there's just, anyways, too many names that can be cut down.
Edwin has joined us. Jeff didn't realize he runs the Avengers West Coast facility.
Yeah, that right.
So welcome, man. You know, we're kind of having a not as directed of a conversation as Chris and I did, but we were just talking about kind of like you know, sharing our own, but sort of, you know, the broad topic was just the mental health aspect of training. And I know, like, when you started with me too, you were very much like, man, I just need to get something physical going, right? When we started training together, and I would imagine that has a huge effect on your everyday psychology, your everyday mental attitude.
Yeah, it was a combination of both, having the need to just do something physical rather than being at a desk 8 hours a day. But also diet played a very important part to that. You know, where the mental health came in, where was after about a year, you know, that's where friends of mine said, you know, you look more cut, you know, your shoulders are more cut, you know, and then and then just to add to that, it was, you know, and I especially saw this um, between white belt and about orange belt, where I was just progressing fast.
Mhm.
It's, and so that made me feel good as well. Um, it's, um, but, um, but, there's this guy named Jocko who's always talking about his path to getting, just in terms of what he does. And in terms of jujitsu, he said something more profound, that just like hit me hard, and that is enjoy the ride. There's no reason why, even though you see yourself, going fast, and you're really liking it, enjoy the ride. And that's what I'm doing right now is I'm just taking my time with it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's an interesting, that just kind of becomes, as Dan Inosanto calls it, um, he calls it a martial lifestyle. And that, that there, I don't know where it is, it's different for everybody, but it just sort of becomes the thing you do, even when you're not doing it. Like, you take a month or 2 or 3 off, doesn't mean you're suddenly not a martial artist anymore, or if you drop down to 1 day a week or you do this or that, you kind of put yourself into it. You grew in a certain way, and then and because I remember when I was starting really wanting, because I mean, we're following a guy who is, I don't think there'll be another Dan Inosanto in a few lifetimes. I mean, a true Dan Inosanto. Like you could go train, a million martial arts out there, but he's a unique individual who had a unique experience. It's just the universe made it so, right? His dad was a certain person in the Filipino community that gave him access to all these Filipino grandmasters, and he trained with Bruce Lee, and he trained with Ed Parker, and he trained with, judo Gene LaBelle, and then he just kept creating a life that allowed him to train with Ajahn Chai and the Machados and all these huge people. And somehow, he created a lifestyle where he was training all this stuff and did it at a high level. Like apparently he's got like a wardrobe closet of black belts. But the point is that uh the so for me, I remember going through a phase of like, wanting all of it, and like next level and all that stuff. And then like you just said, then you kind of grow into like, you still, I mean, you're always going to want to improve and get better at this stuff, and find new ways to do it and all that stuff. But then you start to enjoy the ride, I guess, is really the simple answer. You start to go, oh wow, this is what I do, or you start getting comfortable with your own limitations, and you realize, well, all right, I'm not going to be, you know George St. Pierre, like things like that, right? But you also accept it, it's not a like, well, I can't do this. You keep pushing the boundaries, keep excelling, but you're, as Rick Fay would say, humility. Like that's a huge word, and that to me is actually one of the greatest benefits of being a martial artist. And humility doesn't mean like false sense of it's not like overly humble per se. It's not like, oh, you're all better than me or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's just actually having a healthy relationship to reality. Like the humility, and so I think being training helps you, because I'll use the reverse, and I know a bunch of us have talked about this uh, in person, but I've had friends, I've been with friends, out with friends who their reaction to certain things, my thought was, man, you should train, bro. Like you should, you think this situation's a problem, like, you know, have somebody choking you or hitting you with a stick or knee riding you for, you know what I mean? Like, or even just studying, just knowing the history of the arts we train and know the reality of what people went through for us to have these arts, like the wars and battles. And, it's like, you know, kind of that getting over yourself thing but the humility part, I think, is really what you're talking about. It's like, um, and you get that big time, I think anyways. And for me too, it was like, I've told that story, I think, before, in an email I sent out to people one of the big hurdles for me, and Andy Wilson helped me with this, in his very calm way of doing things. But like, I essentially threw a tantrum early on in my training. I was like 30 years old or something, but I already had a blown out knee, blown out shoulder. I already had some physical limitations, but I'm an old jock, and so I don't take kindly to not being able to perform. And my knee buckled during training, and I got physically, like visually pissed, and I like threw a tantrum. Like, I went to the back room and threw my glove, blah blah blah. And then I got schooled the next day, uh, by Sifu Andy. Just said to me, he's like, well, yeah, man, you have no right to affect the environment, just because it's not about you, essentially. And it was one of those that, and I'm 30, and I'm like, ugh, I feel like my kid, I'm like, God, he's right. Damn it. And I think that, that was a big moment for me. And then there's just been endless moments like that, where you have to swallow your pride and just be like, oh, yep, okay. But yeah, man, I like that a lot. And enjoy the freaking A, man. That is it. Like, and as we get older, like, just being able to train. Somebody under 30 doesn't get that, but like, because they're but the older I get, the more it's just like, oh, wow, can I actually do this today? You know, can throw kicks today? Freaking awesome, and you just keep going. You definitely get tougher. I think you get a little less a woesy me kind of thing, like, and that's a powerful thing, man. Actually, come to think of it, that less complaining. I mean, I'll put you on the spot, but Kerry Copeland is one of the best people to follow, who is not gonna take shit. If I may use those, break an arm and a leg, and she'll be in here. I wish I got to find that video. There's a video, Kerry. Remember when when the elevator tried to kill you, and and she had one arm in a thing and a leg in a thing, and she's in here with one hand doing collie tie-ups, and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Eric, welcome, sir. Look at this group now. This is huge. So never mind the Chris and Bob hour. We got people involved.
It's can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So
Are you on the space shuttle? What's going on?
this is actually a shot from one of my skydives.
Oh,
That yeah, I use it as background.
nice.
And
Love it.
everyone's always like, what is that? Yeah, no, it's my earthly view from above. So the health of doing all this, you know, so I jumped in about the part where, you know, Edwin was mentioning the fact that, he's just enjoying the ride. Um, I've done I've done a lot of physical things throughout my life, so enjoying the ride, is kind of the thing that greases the wheels as I'm doing it. You know, I've gotten to a point, and Bobby, you just touched on it, to where it's like, hey, can I still do this? Right. A while back there was some discussions about, shoulders and PRPs and knees, and these things don't hold up all the time. So I think there's a moment where there's there's that enjoyment mentally, where you're like, hey, look, you know what I did today? Right. And you can go home and kind of look at your friends and family and still get that reciprocation of, oh wow, you still do that?
Yeah.
You can still get up there and do that, right? And it's like, yes, I can. I was talking to some people here at work not too long ago, and it's funny because their remarks are always something of the nature of like, oh man, I know I need to get out. I need to do that. This, oh man, if I got out, I'd feel better. Oh man, if I got out there and started doing it, all these good things may just rain down upon me. Well, stop wishing it. Stop sitting there and thinking about maybe possibly doing it.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like you just said, she's Carrie is an amazing individual. I do at times, want to emulate that as I get further down the road, right? Because doing what we do, and this I also explained to a few people, doing what we do really can cripple somebody once you stop doing it, right? So, like, sir, I can only imagine what it's like for you, on the days where it's like, I haven't been, doing my sit-ups or stretching or, the collie workout or, anything like that. Like, and how much that plays into your mental stability, right? Because I know there for a while when I wasn't training, uh, I was out for those few weeks and everything else like that. Like, it was really having a toll on me, and I could see it when I was going to work,
Yeah.
right? I knew that I was getting uglier about it. I knew that I was getting, kind of returning to the basement per se, returning back to that kind of darker place, because I didn't have the one thing that I enjoyed doing. Um, and that was, making sure that the camaraderie, right? I think that's a super huge thing
Yeah.
when it comes to doing what it is that we do,
Mhm.
um, because we as just, human beings, we are essentially not made to do things alone. We are not made to be alone,
Yeah.
right? To our core, we are supposed to be, involved with each other and commingle, cohabitate, and do all these things. And then, just the fact of being able to, you know, uh, assist, assist and help and do all those things. It releases cortisol, that whole thing where, it just kicks off in your brain, and now you're having this elation about, even though it sucks and you're doing 10, 5, 5, 5, and 10s, right? At the end, you're so happy that you've went through it, and that not only did you go through it, but you went through it with 2, 1, 8, 7, however, 17 other individuals, right? And you have that common bond. One aspect of it that I do want to ask is, when you are in that mode of not being able to train and things like that. Now, I know that there's things like, meditation and stuff like that, but like for me, I really kind of get into, again, kind of that dark place where I need it. I know that I need it, because as soon as I stop doing it or I start doing it, um, it's like the sun comes out, right?
Totally.
So I guess other than the simple fact of like, well, make sure that you keep training, um, you know, what are some of the tips and tricks that you may go through when it is that you're down, you know bodies going, apes, and you can't swing the stick or anything like that.
Yeah.
What are some tips and techniques that you?
All right. Well, so I think this leads to a good example of mine. So last year, I got my wrist cut, right?
All right.
Could not use my entire right arm. And yeah, but I still wanted to continue martial arts. So that first day I met with Bob, like he said, well, how about we start training your left side? And that's exactly what we did for weeks on end. And
Mhm.
that's what it brought, and
Mhm.
that brought my mental health up,
Mhm.
where now after 1 year, I'm like kind of ambidextrous, just in a way. But it's like, well, so, but because for so long I was right side dominant, now it was sort of relearning martial arts, but from the left side now. So
And I think that's now there's like whole different conversation, there are whole different things because where does that come from where people like you, like Carrie, people, I've had people, show up because I tell people like, so specifically to my school, I tell people all the time, and maybe I need to be even more uh, proactive with this, but I'm like, look, come to class. Like if you're injured, let's say, I say, oh, I can't use my arm. Well, still come to class. Like at the very worst, hang out by the side and watch what's going on. Like I'll see that at Brian's school where guys, I've done that where I can't train at all, but I'm going to come because it compounds the habit of going. You're connecting, you're still connected, you're visualizing it, you're getting the mirror neurons where, but or do something on the bag or let's modify. Cause yeah, I remember Ed when we had to, and you had that torn calf muscle too, you know? And I think that, we've had the luxury of working together. So I've been able to tell you, oh, dude, still come because I've had some people go, oh, I can still come to class. I'm like, yeah, come, I'll put you on the bag or something. Heidi had to do that where she was having these, this sort of vertigo. And I was like, all right, well, just come work on the bag. Or like Carrie, we talked about that time, when you've had, things. So there's an invitation I need to maybe continue, you know, instilling in people's mind. But I also wonder too, and that's another whole conversation. I mean, it just really comes down to having and I'm afraid to say dedication. There's somewhat of a passion to it as well. And sort of like a like, well, this is what I am. I'm a martial artist. And so if it means I got to go to class with just a pencil, I'm still, it doesn't, because I've had people, maybe they just didn't catch the bug or it's just in their DNA or their personality. Like I've used the example of people who, well, I didn't come for a week, I had a hangnail. And I'm like, and I got a student over there in a cast hitting the bag with one arm. How do I don't, I'm too much of sometimes a smart ass. I'm not even know how to bridge that gap with somebody. Like you had a hangnail. I don't know what to tell you. It's like the guy who didn't want to join the gym because there was no parking and he was going to walk 2 blocks. And I'm like, bro, if the 2 block walk is something you're worried about, you're going to hate what we're doing on the mats. Like you're not going to do 5, 10, 5, like, so there might be a personality thing for sure to a degree, but uh, you know, eh, eh, to answer the question of how to get through that, and that's a great topic outside of just like we did like with Edwin, pushing through and well, let's train lefty. That's powerful stuff. I mean, that's powerful stuff for your body. Your body actually responds to that because the body is now getting a signal that it is healthy and it heals faster. And I did this when I had knee surgery a couple times, a couple of knee surgeries, but um that being said, like how to do that with, and again, look, that's part of what I'm trying to start with this sort of online learning aspect too, is to give some people that option that like, hey, you're stuck at home or you're out there. Here's some, let's do this 10-minute thing today. Here's your routine. And once you get it going, because it's always getting going that's the hardest for me too. And I'll be honest, but once you get it going, you're like, oh yeah, even if it's, I can't use this shoulder. Okay, I'll use this shoulder, right? Or I'll educate the body this way because it's a lifetime. I mean, this is a lifestyle. That's the thing. Like there's people that have been out longer than us and they come back, I mean, shit, Bruce Lee broke his back, right? But so I think, there's that aspect too of, if you really want to get, for me, it's different because this is my vocation. I mean, I have to show up, or I don't, have any food. I mean, so simple, right? I mean, I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. This is my passion, but at the same time too, I have to find ways to keep going because I teach people one-on-one and if I don't train, teaching sucks. Like I don't have the connection to it anymore. But that being said, like, even doing things like reading about the martial arts you're training used to help me. Like when I was away from the dojo, when I couldn't train, I got way into back when books were a thing, like in the early 2000s. But anyways, yeah, I'm joking, but like getting, keeping your mind in it as well and just finding what you can do physically to keep the body moving, even if you don't have the ability to come in, right? But keeping that open in your mind mentally, right, is huge. Visualization, I mean, has been proven to affect the body too. I mean, they've done studies of people visualizing one activity and just actually doing the activity, and they've seen equal production, right? Equal improvement. Like the basketball. Have you heard that study they did with forget how many it was, but they had half of. Now you have to have done the activity, I think, first. But they had half a group practice free throw for a certain amount of hours. They had another half the group visualize the details of the free throw, and I forget, but it was equal at least improvement, if not better. But the visualizing, so those would be some of my just off the cuff pieces of advice. But again, I think too, just coming to class, even when you can't operate, even if it just means sitting and watching.
Before I last year when I popped my elbow out, before I had the confidence to feel like I can continue and everything, I took like almost 2 weeks off, but I was still using your online dojo and all your videos to kind of follow along with at home, but at a much slower rate to work
Nice.
through my elbow. So now that you have that more available and a lot more content, it's been super helpful, and I continue to use it.
Good. This is turning into a promo for the Desktop Dojo. Wow, look at us go. This is the dream. I'm living the dream.
Throw that in there right now.
Where's my
Yeah.
cut, Bob?
What's that?
Where's my cut?
Yeah, well, I've got a little IOU thing going here with Edwin and I have the distinct relationship of being each other's client.
Yeah, that's true.
Pretty wild. But yeah, that's great, man. I mean, and again, look, that is why I enjoy doing this stuff too, and why even these conversations, it's a great part of what we do, I think. Obviously, I mean, we get to have them in general anyways and with you guys specifically, I see you guys. So, but the ideal would be that, people, the ideal is people that aren't even students that are coming in and either just getting into the videos but for everyone, it's just that starting point and having a process. And I think that's something I could start doing more of, just thinking out loud here of actually an outline, hey, what are you doing? Because people have asked, like for solo training, right? For instance, and I've done these 10-minute workouts. I don't know if you've ever seen those where like did a couple JKD ones a while back and some heavy, just like 10-minute bag workout, right? And I mean, it wasn't like this massive flood of, but a decent amount of people who aren't necessarily regularly training or are, but don't get in as much or whatever it was, were like, man, all right. Because then you don't have to think about it, right? It's like, all right, Bob says do jab cross 2 kicks. I'm going to do that, And I get that. I'm the exact same way. You just like, it's why I love seminars now with Rick Fay, because I don't have to teach and I just get told what to do. And I don't care what it is. I'm usually psyched, like, because I don't do class like you guys. So I'm like, great, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's fine. That's great, and 4 counts, beautiful. Anyways, but yeah, Eric, that's a great. I think there's a lot of direction in that type of question. Period. Like in terms of just what could you do as a practicing I almost said musician, as a practicing martial artist. Um, but but then also, for people that don't necessarily have the school, because I think that has always been, and for me too, that place that it makes working out easier. It makes dieting easier, like Edwin was talking about. It makes certain choices and decisions and paths outside of here like easier in a way, right? You're like, oh, I'm a martial artist. Like I belong in this dojo. I'm going to look into better nutrition for myself, or I'm going to look into better, mindful practice or whatever it is. Because that for me was that when I started at MKG, bam. I mean, I was way more confident for one to going trying like a yoga class or something too, because I didn't feel like I'm like, wow, you get used to feeling stupid or like a little uncomfortable. So I was like, well, sure, I'll go try that. Why not? What are they going to do? They ain't going to punch me, and if they do, I'm ready for it. But then, or like or getting it, researching things that just kind of like you know physics or things, I don't know, just you get more interested in more like working out. Like most people come in this door that aren't already interested in martial arts. They're like, I hate working out. And I'm like, yeah, it's boring. It sucks. And you don't, you lose the motivation after about a month at the best. But when people start training, it makes supplemental working out much more like enjoyable. You have a reason, like, oh, it makes sense to go jogging or do something because then it'll make my martial arts better. You know, you're muted, Eric. I think you're muted. And we'll wrap up soon. What is it? 101. I think you're still muted.
You probably have to
Anybody?
something.
I didn't mute you.
Wait, try muting. Now talk.
What is going on? Hold on, Eric. Hold on. All right. And I don't understand why it's I said I clicked ask to unmute, but it's still keeping you muted. There we go. Try again, young man. Anybody hearing?
I had this issue, I think the first session.
Can't hear you.
You want to check his Windows settings if he's operating on Windows.
Ah, you could type your question into the chat in the meantime. I don't understand, but oh, he just disappeared. Well, maybe he's logging in, logging out, but
I think he's on his phone now.
I was just as Eric's getting his technical situation going on. Oh, let's see. Oh, he's gonna log back in. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll probably close up soon after Eric gets back in. But if you have any, I almost feel like a maybe not, but almost a good topic too is because it is relevant, to who was it that was talking about? Well, Eric was talking about like when people are like, wow, you still do that? Like, I think a topic is being an adult, like an adult in martial arts. Like, for some people, they have no clue, right? Like I have friends that their only relationship to they think I do karate. Or nothing against karate, but they just assume everything is karate. Um, and they think it's just me and a bunch of 12-year-old kids. And I don't know how many people, I think I think jujitsu uh, and kickboxing have sort of broken down that mythology a little bit. But one of the things that could be a good topic or thing to consider is what is it that keeps, I mean, it's maybe all the things we're already talking about, but the challenge of being this kind of martial artist, when you're a competitor, it's a little bit more simplified. Well, I got a competition, so I got to train for that competition. But when you're just training for life, that can be a challenge, right? Like, what do we, I go through it myself, and again, I have such a love for this and my experience with Dan Inosanto and Rick Fay, but profoundly changed my life to wanting to be part of that world till I die, and then help people get through into that world and do what I can to share that art. So it just kind of hit me that way, and that's why I do what I do. But it is a curious thing and probably another good topic of that. Well, it's kind of like, why do you do this? But what is it that you know that keeps an adult with a life doing this, with such dedication and to never want to use it? That's the thing, right? It's like, you hope to God that all these skills I learn and never. But Eric, you're back. What do you got, man?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, because as I go through, an issue with alcohol and other things like that, and that's why I was bringing up part of that question, and I had forgotten it. I'm sorry. Is because of the fact that, like you were just saying, you know, these are things that you want to go and you want to do for the rest of your life, and that's where I'm at, is wondering, how it is I can take care of some of those smaller nuances, just because of the fact that I have, that nature of me, and what it is that I do now. That is what keeps my mental health from degrading to the point of destruction. And that's why I say getting back into those darker places, because it doesn't take a whole lot. Um, is where, I'm trying to kind of navigate, um, because everything's cool when I'm at the dojo, right? That day is a very great day. But when it is that I have to step away and I have to be, at work for, many weeks and not train, things like that. So I never really stopped to think about, well, opening up your mind or my mind to, I mean, just even instructionals,
Oh.
right? And feeding off of those. It's, for me, it's always been, okay, I gotta go do it. Um, to the point to almost failure, because it's like, I've even stood here and I've told my supervisors, hey, I gotta go do this tomorrow. And they're looking at me like, well, I mean, we need you to do this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very willing to put my job on the line,
Yeah.
like, and sometimes that's not the healthiest way to go about things. So, that's why, first off, I'm very excited for this segment. Because just in these few little minutes, you know, that that actually opened up. Oh yeah, hey, guess what? Chris did some sticks for me that are, minis, and I have been doing them here, right? It's really funny some of the looks that I get when they look at me through my windows with my office door shut, and I'm just like, are you sure you want to come and talk to me right now? Um, you know, um,
Got some sticks in my hand.
right? But no, yeah, even just kind of like opening up and diving into more of the Ponatucan, culture, things like that. I've been, digging into more of the in Asanto, uh, you know, legacy, you know. Um, it's proving to be very interesting because, yeah, like you said, I ran across something where it was like they were talking about like uh, what is it? Fake instructors compared to real martial arts instructors, this, that, and the other, and actually Dan is on a list where he is accredited with like all this stuff, and you're like, are you kidding? How did you put that into one life?
Yeah.
And by the way, you're still putting more in there,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well, and
how
that's
do
what
you?
I mean. Like, I don't think many people can do it, do what he
Yeah,
did.
I'll never get to half of what, but if I can get to, at least, a couple of things, and that's why, like, it really does, I will say, like, it really does hurt that I'm not, doing jits like I was before, because it just kind of fulfilled that circle.
Yeah.
Um, but I am able to enjoy what it is that I am doing and carry that joy out through the day. Um, and it's really something to behold, because even my team sees it,
Yeah.
right? They see the difference. They know when it's going to be, they know when extreme weather's coming because Eric gets not happy. So,
I'll tell you, real quick too, guys, just this got me thinking too. If you can find reading about this stuff is actually quite, motivating too. Like, whether, not even just when you can't train, but, I think that's a beneficial that kind of propels your connection to it a little bit more. Like, for instance, just Filipino martial arts specifically. You also have to be aware that there's going to be lots of, you know, differences of opinions, and because especially in Filipino martial arts, it's vast and unique and, diverse as it gets. But that being said, like, you know, for me too, like for lack of a better word, started just creating a spiritual connection to just swinging angles 1, 2, 3, 4. Because again, for some people that was life. That was the angle one is for a lot of systems called San Miguel, which is the image of Saint Michael slaying the dragon is here, and that's why they call that San Miguel. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because, and with a lot of other martial arts for that matter, and I think because it's rooted in real combat, like life and death combat, that your moral connection to it needs to be pretty dialed in. It's not it ain't, it's like, so the act of doing this is like connecting to a warrior, like the warriors of the past, and and you can be part of that to some degree, whatever that, even if it's just in the office doing it like that, but having that, I think, researching it and stuff like that is a really good idea, period, for everybody. I think it just adds, adds more depth and richness to it. Even just beyond the Dan and Asano's history, but then all the other cultural aspects of it. But I just thought I'd throw that in there. But yeah. But anyways, I think anybody got any other thing they want to throw at it? I always put an hour, but these definitely these could go on forever. But I appreciate everybody, you guys coming in and doing this, right? Because this kind of like, again, I think can stimulate other conversations and that's why, again, I don't want to call it Q&A. I mean, definitely I'll be, I like the collaborative thing aspect of it a little bit more. So.
Well, you can call it a round table.
All right. I like that too. Yeah. I like that. I called it the Desktop Dojo. What did I call it? Desktop Dojo Live or something?
Yes.
Desktop, or yeah, the round table. I like that. I don't know, what I want it to be inviting though to people and not make them feel like they have to necessarily like they can listen in. They can just be they don't necessarily have to contribute to it, but something like that, we can keep slinging it around. Cool. Any other questions? Are there any questions? As Dan and Asano would say, are there any questions I can answer in 30 seconds? No, just kidding.
Do you have any topics for next week?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I was getting some ideas just talking today.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, one is the one we were just talking about, which is why would I train martial arts as an adult? Like what?
Yeah.
That would be a really good one for everyone to chime in on this, and then also include people that aren't necessarily training or on the fence with it. I do also like talking about, and Carrie, it'd be great, having your experience and expertise as well, and some other guys. Like I've talked about trying to get Joe in on it, getting back into the conversation that we had last week, Chris, and just kind of the synergy, the fusing of the martial artist and then personal protection, self-defense, where they're similar, different, things like that, But no, I don't really have anything in mind yet. So if you have any thoughts or ideas for the next round table, the melding of minds, what do they call it? It's
the Vulcan mind meld.
The Vulcan mind meld. That's no, it's called a mind.
The meeting of the minds.
I don't know. I'm losing it. I'll just quit while I'm ahead. Not meeting of the mind. What is it? It's a mastermind.
Ah, okay.
Mastermind. Yeah, but it's like $20,000. So that'll be the fee to join the master. You want to be part of this roundtable? Free in May, June, up to $20,000 a year. You get to be invited to our mastermind.
You take American Express?
And then I'll be able to pay my CPA. Little inside joke. But cool, guys. Well, awesome. It's good to see you guys in the little windows here, and I'll be seeing you on the mat soon, I'm sure.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Well, I'll post this if you guys are okay with that.
Yep.
And people can listen in on our roundtable.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.